All right, so to start off, good evening, everyone. My name is Abhishek Jain, and I'm pleased to invite you all to the second episode of the MSc series by Planty. Today, we're very fortunate to have with us Barsha Amarendra, a graduate of the 2018 batch of Vishweshwarya National Institute of Technology, who then went on to pursue her Master of Science or her MSc in Architecture, Urbanism, and Building Sciences from Delhi University of Technology in 2020. In this session, Barsha will be speaking in detail on the application process to DUT as well as the opportunities that are available both during and after completing an MSc from the Delhi University of Technology. I would now like to hand it over to Barsha to begin this session.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing my experiences and also helping other students with the same. I would just present my screen now. Okay. Just give me a heads up if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So, beginning with Delft University of Technology, which is also known as TU Delft, has the MSc program of Architecture, Urbanism, and Building Sciences. But before we begin, let's acquaint ourselves to the university and the faculty. So TU Delft is located in Netherlands, in the tiny town of Delft, which is known for its historical significance. So there's more than just Amsterdam in Netherlands, actually. And so it has a very top ranking university. So one of the things that I try to do is show you in the QS ranking, the Times Higher Education ranking, and the Shanghai ranking to show where it falls. As a university, it's one of the top 10 colleges in Netherlands. In Europe, it falls in the top 50 colleges, and even in the world, it has a very nice ranking in terms of the university. However, when we talk about specific streams, for example, architecture, engineering, and technology, TU Delft tends to be much better in these rankings. For example, in Netherlands, it is up in the first 3 spots. Even in Europe, for architecture, it is in the first spot. And even for in the world, it's actually the second best place to do your architecture masters in TU Delft. Now, going on to the Faculty of Architecture and Built Environment. It's always said that life never stands still in this renovated building in Julian Hill. Historically, the building was not located here. It burned down quite a few years ago, and then the whole faculty was shifted into this department, which is intended for chemistry students. However, this has been remodeled, renovated, and now it's a home to young designers, researchers, and it's a birthplace of innovative knowledge, designs, and a lot of design firms like the famous West Arc, MVDRV. So all of have had their beginnings from this faculty. And then it's a place which doesn't shut down as the sun sets. It opens up early in the morning at 8 o'clock every single day of the year, except for Christmas holidays and a few summer holidays. And it stays on till late hours of the night. It also has the XSL hours where during the exam times it stays on later than usually required. But the only thing is they have a strict policy of shutting down the department during the weekends because people here believe that as much as your work is important, so is your social life balance, which is, I think, something which is very credible coming from an Indian education background. So why is studying at TU Delft a big deal amongst architecture school? Why is it that they rank the first in the first 3 schools in the world and also in Europe? So the very basic fundamental idea is behind model making as a design process. They do not limit the students to only software or computer aided. They encourage every single moment of your design process to start working with model, have a hands-on work experience, how the materiality is going to look, how the form is going to look, which makes it quite a good experience when it comes to form development and architectural aesthetics. Now, you have something called the Y Factory, which is in collaboration with industrial players like MVDRV, and it focuses completely on the physical exploration. And it's about how you visualize spaces, not only in terms of your softwares, but in terms of scale, in terms of materiality, in terms of how it's going to be presented. And that is something which is one of the benefits of TU Delft. The second is you have a plethora of all year round exhibitions. So you are free to attend any of these exhibitions. Different groups of students come and present their works, and you can learn from each of them. They're always open to discuss the research that they have done, discuss the design, and there's always something to learn from someone or the other here. Again, you have the Archipre exhibitions, which happen here, the national level, even the international, a lot of this international ones which happen. And these are also places where you can see what is the level of the graduate work that is being done in the school, and how you can make your work up to a certain standard. The second thing is, again, you start learning even how to present your ideas in a very concise manner. So one of the things that these exhibitions also prepare you for is having a pitch within 5 seconds, or how do you within 5 minutes, how do you get your idea across to the viewer in the most concise and comprehensive manner? And how do you make all of your year's work into one sheet which tells the whole story? So it also prepares you to be a very to sell your idea in the best possible way. The second is all your lecture series. So there are different lectures that are conducted by the Berlage, which is a part of the TU Delft Faculty of Architecture, but also other lectures conducted by the student associations, which I'll come later. And all of these lecture series are free to be attended by all. You can always come in and you can join this lecture. So you also get an opportunity to explore other topics which might not be part of your master's course. The second thing about these lecture series is they are very interactive. You are encouraged to ask questions. You're encouraged to participate in what is happening. And all of these lecture series happen during the lunchtime or after the study hours. So you never have to miss your own courses to attend these lectures. The third is the faculty library. So apart from the central library of TU Delft, which is quite iconic for everyone, there's also a faculty library. And it has 35,000 books, 14,000 maps, 550 atlases, 260 magazine titles. There's nothing that you will not find here. And if you don't find something, you can always go up to the library in charge and you can request for that book, and they'll make sure that they procure it somehow, either a soft copy or a hard book copy. So you are always given the freedom and liberty to learn as much as you want. The third is you have in-house bookshop and print shop. You can never complain that you could not come up with prints or you don't have the required model making stuff. Everything is provided here. And apart from the print shop, there are also a number of print stations where you can take your campus card and print at your will. And it's at a very subsidized rate so that people don't have a problem with showing their sheets, or there's never a limitation from the side of the student. The third is you have a varied workspaces. One of the things that we as Indian students are aware of is a very formal setup of tables and chairs and a teacher standing in front of us and deliberating. Here, it is not the same. You have a lot of spaces that are formal and informal. You have the espresso bar where you can sit and work at your own comfort. You have a lot of informal sitting arrangements where you can talk to your supervisors, you can talk to your colleagues. You also have the studio spaces where each person is assigned, you can take a space there. You have charging stations, you have hanging bars where you can hang your sheets. You have whiteboards where you can also work on. So there's a lot of opportunities to creatively engage in a space instead of being stuck in a very conventional classroom. You also have opportunities for audiovisual seminars. You have screens everywhere so that you can really see how it's going to look in an audiovisual format. Apart from it, you also have spaces for social interaction. Now, TU Delft is one of the universities in Netherlands which has a host of international students, and it is very proud of its international community, and it offers a lot of ways through which you can interact with other colleagues, learn from them, and gain a cultural sensitivity. So this is actually the canteen of the faculty, where people come here. They have their lunch, they have their afternoon snacks, evening snacks, and there's also a place where you have a lot of work meetings. Then you have the outdoor spaces where, again, on a nice sunny afternoon, it's always nice to sit here, have your meetings, have your group discussions, and also have your quiet lunch here if you wish. You have the Baupub, which is something very specific to TU Delft's Faculty of Architecture, where every Tuesday and Thursday, the Baupub opens the doors to a glass of beer and informal interaction and social bonding with your friends. And then after that, you have a lot of study associations. So each of the master track within Faculty of Architecture has their own study association, which publishes magazines, which conducts events, which conducts lecture series, and it also tries to get together the people who come from different cultures in a similar identity. Now, the Masters in Sciences, Architecture, Urbanism, and Building Sciences is an umbrella term for a lot of different experiences in architecture, spatial planning, and built environment. And it has an international orientation, like I've already mentioned. It has a multinational faculty of staff and students. However, its teaching borrows from a very Dutch tradition of working in a multidisciplinary way. And it involves students working in groups to create integrated solutions for the built environment. There's never going to be a point where you do not draw your learnings from what is around you. It is situated in the experiences and the learnings of all these Dutch offices, and it always tries to learn from the mistakes and learn from the good practices of it. So it's not only theoretical, which is what I meant when I said it's renowned for its Dutch experience. Now, it's called the Masters in Science. That's the degree that you get. It's for 24 months, which is 2 years. It's full-time, and it starts in September each year. And one of the nice parts about this university, it's one of the few universities in Europe which has a complete language of instruction in English. When you're within the campus, you will never have a problem of not knowing how to communicate because everything happens in English. And Masters in Science, Architecture, Urbanism, Building Sciences is an umbrella term for different master's tracks that are being offered. And there are 5 specific master's tracks, which I'll start elaborating on. The first track is the Masters in Architecture, and it draws from the rich architectural culture of Netherlands. You have Dutch roofs, you have a specific type of Dutch masonry, you have a specific type of Dutch houses. And it's not talking about going back to history, but learning from all of these practices over the year and how the culture has changed. Rem Koolhaas, a Pritzker Prize winner, is actually a Dutch person who works from his office in Rotterdam. MVDRV, a renowned firm with working in China, Japan, all of these places, is actually based in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. So you learn from the innovative building projects that has used not only social and spatial challenges, but also technical challenges of the present times. And what sets it apart? This program sets itself apart from other architecture programs in the diversity of directions available. Students can choose from a range of studios, each with a different focus from conceptual to concrete, from technical to theoretical, and from building to city scales. Each studio combines teaching by academics and practitioners from leading architectural firms, including Kees Kaan, Winnie Maas, Dick Van Cameron. And you also have a lot of visiting professors that you can interact with to understand how things are happening in the profession, along with the lecture series, which kind of keep you up to date about the innovations in the industry. And what are the career prospects once you do a master's in architecture? So the university's connection to important industry figures allows you to have very good opportunities in both Netherlands and abroad. And most of this graduates from the architecture track move into professions of designers, interior designers, or urban planners, while some work as independent architects as well. Apart from architecture firms, you can also find opportunities in government, education and research, and product development firms, housing corporation, and construction contractors. So basically, your architecture doesn't limit you. This track actually opens up a lot of doors based on the electives that you choose during your master's program of 2 years. The second track is that of building technology. The building technology track encompasses a broad spectrum of engineering and architectural design skills that lead one of the dominant professions of the future, the sustainable designer. You have focus on structural part, you have focus in facade, climate design, and you also have focus on how to adapt all the urban building technologies. So it has a lot of these things where you try to learn from the sustainable and vernacular practices, building practices, and how do you adapt it to the present day challenges to create sustainable, comfortable, and environmentally intelligible buildings. And what sets it apart is through focusing on structural, facade, and climate design, students learn how to contribute to smart buildings that are sustainable, comfortable, and environmentally intelligent. This program stands out internationally because of its integration of architectural design with technical disciplines, filling the niche between architecture and engineering. Rather than focusing on one or two specializations, students investigate the whole breadth of building technology, looking at climate design, facade and product design, structural design, design informatics, producing designers that know how engineers work. So you're not only looking at the aesthetical part of it, you also know how things work. And prospective students, now who should apply? So prospective students must show both technical and architectural skills, interest, and understanding. You cannot only have a very fancy portfolio to apply for this position. You also need a very technical know-how of how the building construction really works. What are the structural parts of the building and how are they connected to each other? The program is well suited to architectural graduates looking to strengthen their technical qualification and those with a technical background that want to strengthen their design abilities. The next master's track is actually urbanism and landscape architecture. So the urbanism track draws on the Dutch tradition of combining urban design, landscape architecture, spatial planning, and engineering. Students learn to integrate social, cultural, economic, and political perspectives with natural and man-made conditions of the site in order to shape and plan for more sustainable development. And within the section of urbanism, you also have the master track of landscape architecture, which deals with the present challenges of climate change, social crisis, the cultural crisis that is happening in our urban spheres and also in our landscapes. Now, master's track urbanism, what really sets it apart? So, you start working on several scales. It is not just let's work on the building scale or let's work on the neighborhood scale. You start strategizing regional visions and you work through a multi-scalar approach. Through this project, students respond to local trends such as congestions, mobility, urban renewal, shrinkage, densification, and global trends such as globalization, climate change, demographic trends. So basically, what is the one thing that you get to know is it's not based on only theory. You really understand what are the trends happening now and how to react to these changes rather than read some theory which has been written 20 years back. The urbanism track aims to provide the prospective urban planner, designer with academic skills to analyze urban environments and urban developments in a critical way to propose new solutions. Now, one of the things that people do not realize about TU Delft is that we don't only talk about designing, we also talk about understanding the landscape or the urban scape that you're surrounded with. You cannot design for a city without an understanding of what is going wrong and what is not going wrong and what are the things that need to be changed. So urbanism track essentially equips you to be able to conduct this research and to analyze and debate and be critical, because being critical is very important in the profession. Now, what are the career prospects of urbanism? The importance of urbanism as an integrating discipline is becoming increasingly apparent and the Netherlands is well known as a leader in this field. Graduates are well placed to work for urban design and planning offices, government authorities, and to join research networks in the Netherlands and abroad. Some are also involved in small-scale urban design and landscaping. Now, if you talk about the career prospects, for example, in India, so you have this huge scheme of smart city development. It is basically an urbanism project where you try to envision the urban environment of the Indian cities in a way that is more sustainable towards the needs of the generation. So this is basically how it relates to urbanism. The next is the master's track of landscape architecture and what sets it apart. So the landscape architect connects in and outdoor spaces from architectonic ensembles, including gardens, urban spaces, and large-scale urban rural infrastructural landscapes. So again, just like urbanism, landscape architecture also deals with a multi-scalar approach of working. Students learn to see landscape as a contextual underlay for understanding, ordering, and acting in spatial transformation. And the emphasis lies on the historical continuity of landscape as a process. Now, one of the crucial parts of landscape architecture, this is the master's that I myself did, is talking about landscape not as a point in the map, but as a system. So we don't start doing like, okay, this is my site and this is what I'm going to work at. You have to start talking about landscape as a process over time, but also through different scales, which is what makes this landscape architecture program very unique. And the programs accept students with varied backgrounds, such as bachelor's in architecture, urban design, urban planning, garden design, landscape architecture, forest, tree, and environmental design. Now, the vast backgrounds that it accepts is because it also, the master's track gives you the opportunity of learning a vast amount of things. You can, if you're interested in garden assemblies, you can also work in just that scale. If you're interested in energy landscapes, you can also work on that scale. So it never limits the kind of people who can come and learn. Now, what are the career prospects? Now, landscape architecture is emerging as one of the most promising disciplines of the built environment, for which Netherlands has a good global reputation. Graduates are employed by agencies specializing in landscape architecture, by interdisciplinary architecture, urbanism, and engineering firms. Government agencies also employ landscape architects in planning, design, policy-making positions, and as project leaders and researchers. The next track is the management in built environment. So the track management in built environment engages with managerial dimension and processes of built environment and the construction industry. Students learn how to manage the urban development and construction process so as to guide those many stakeholders to achieve high quality and financially rewarding development. Now, the management in built environment is known as different things like construction management or construction technology. This is basically both management and technology together, which helps you direct the way your development is supposed to be, how is it supposed to be planned, and what are the timelines for it. So it's more talking about project scheduling and how to get the project done. So what sets the management in built environment apart? Students learn how to manage the urban development and construction process so as to guide the many stakeholders to achieve high quality and financially rewarding development. Also, when you have a lot of different stakeholders, for example, you have real estate person, you have architects, you have a different construction industry, and you have the clients. The people with the management and built environment essentially coordinates among all of them and tries to tabulate all of their needs and requirements into a more streamlined process of communication and work. This track sets itself apart from other management in the built environment programs in its design focus. As part of the Faculty of Architecture, this program builds on our strength in creating multidisciplinary design-based solutions. Prospective students must demonstrate a sensibility to the processes involved in the design of building projects and have a keen interest in managerial issues. So basically, it's not going to be okay if you're just wanting to be a manager. You also need to have a basic design sense and how to create design-based solutions for problems. Now, what are the career prospects for the management in built environment? Now, graduates are valued by project development companies, real estate investors, housing associations, municipalities, and regional and central governments, where they may concentrate on the overall logistics of design, construction, and management. They also join firms involved in the management, maintenance, or renovation of large office or residential projects. Graduates may also opt for an academic career and continue their studies at the doctoral level. Now, from my experience, I've always seen management and built environment graduates as one of the most lucrative professionals because there are a lot of demand for these in the present times. Now, also, it's not only about career prospects that you have to see after graduation, but what are your affiliations after graduations? So, with a diploma of architecture, landscape architecture, or urbanism track, you can, after completion of professional traineeship, which is basically a brief internship period specified by the Dutch Register of Architects, you can apply for the registration in the Dutch Register of Architects, which allows you to get the protected title of architect, landscape architect, or urban designer in the Netherlands. However, the building technology and management in the built environment tracks, such as the Postmasters program EMU and Berlage, do not allow you to register in the Dutch Register of Architects. So I will explain this with a more local example. For example, some colleges in India, for example, NIT Nagpur, where I studied from, once you graduate, you can get a registration by the Council of Architecture. But there are a lot of colleges in India itself who are not affiliated with the Council of Architecture. So upon graduation, they are not registered as officially practicing license. So whenever you're signing a document, you're not entitled to sign it as the architect. You have to have someone else license the work for you. The same goes for this, where you have these diplomas where you can be part of this federation of architects, and you get more opportunities as you go in life, like starting your own office there, something of that sort. Now, what are the soft skills that you get upon graduation? You have a degree, you have your affiliation, you have a great job, but what else do you get out of this 2 years and spending so much money? So one of the things that you really start to realize is you are able to communicate and situate your ideas and thoughts within a global community of knowledge. This is because whatever you speak is going to be very much grounded in a lot of research that you have done over the years. You're going to be able to communicate it. As I said, you have a lot of exhibitions where you have to put 1 year of your work in one poster. So you start getting very selective about the words you have to use and how you have to portray your ideas to be best understood by the person in front of you. Now, the next thing is able to network better with colleagues due to collaborative nature of projects. So as I mentioned in one of the previous slides, is one of the things that the Masters of Architecture, Urbanism and Built Environment Building Sciences does, is they divide people into groups. So that you don't work individually per se, you start working in groups. And one of the things that happens is you start to learn from the other person as much as you learn from a tutor who's standing in front of you. For example, I've worked on a lot of group projects, and you start to learn from them. You start to network better with them. You start to understand how they culturally think and how you think. The next thing is about cultural sensitivity, which comes from the previous topic of working with people and having different cultural exposure. Now, one of the things that I had was in all of the groups, I work with people from different nationalities. They might be Dutch, South Korean, Singaporeans, Italian, Greek. So you start to understand how each person from a different part of the world learns, how they think, what are their expertise. And it is not only about learning about the Dutch context, which they teach you in the classroom, but also learning about how different cultures tend to see landscapes. Now, the next thing is knowledge situated within practical experiences. Much of these courses are also, I will speak mostly about landscape architecture right now. We had a lot of site visits where we were actually taken around the Netherlands and we were shown what they were talking in class. So when they talk about a river landscape, they actually took us to a river landscape to see what it actually is. When they talk about a sand dune, they actually actually took off a textbook. There is no textbook at TU Delft. It's always lectures given by professors, but you always actually see what they are talking about, and you learn from these practical experiences. And there are also a lot of these workshops where you build hands-on. For example, we had a workshop where we actually had to go out and build a garden. So it teaches you through the hands-on experience that you have. Now, this last thing is self-awareness of future plans, whether industry, a career in the industry or in research. So one of the things that I had mentioned in a lot of the master's track career opportunities was the ability to be in research in an academic role. It is because each of these master track has a very essential research component to it. As much as you design, you're also encouraged to research on it. In fact, it is essential that you research to be able to design, because we follow a system of design by research and research by design. And in this, when you have so much of exposure towards research, you start to really question yourself, which is the one domain I'm better at? Is it just designing, or is it also research, or is it both? So you start to get a little bit clarity of what is it that you want to spend the rest of your years doing. Now, when to apply. So talking specifically in terms of non-EU nationals or Indian nationals, so the application deadline is 15 January. It ends at midnight, and it's subject to yearly changes. For 2021, it was 15 January. And the application is done through TU Delft's online application portal, so you don't have to send any post. It is very clear on what documents you have to upload, and the online application portal is very neat, and you'll get to know everything once you go to the online application portal. And these applications open on 15th October, at least that's what happened this time. And it's subject to yearly changes based on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. And one of the things that is very essential for people to understand at this case is, if you apply on the 15th of October, it doesn't guarantee an application. And if you apply on the 14th of January, it still means you might be able to get a seat. It's not a first come, first basis condition. It's mostly the quality of your work that gives you an admission. Now, how to apply. So basically, there are two criteria that you have to make sure of. Now, TU Delft as a university has a general admissions requirement. So it consists of a basic application package of undergraduate transcripts. So you have to have a certain amount of credit score during your undergraduate studies. It's mostly 7.5 CGPA. Once you give the undergraduate transcripts with how it is being calculated, the marks in every subject, they basically have a way of calculating it. And also they look at the subjects that you have read during your undergraduate degree, and if the subjects are enough for them to give you an admission. The motivation letter, which is something that every college asks for your master's application, which also has a sent template. So you can look at motivation letters on ISU or somewhere like that. You have recommendation letters, which is from academic people. It's much better if it's from academic, because they want to judge you on how you have been as a student, and if your student ethics and design ethics suit their way of knowledge giving. Next is language test, because it's something that every college asks. It's generally done through TOEFL, or you have IELTS. So each of this has a general cutoff, and it's not too much of a cutoff. You don't have to be perfect in English, but there's a general cutoff that you do have to clear. Once you have met all of these general admission criteria, then comes the specific criteria for the faculty. And it is done basically on basis of a digital portfolio. And a portfolio is required for all the MSc tracks: architecture, building technology, landscape architecture, management and built environment, and urbanism. And it should include samples of work from your previous educational program, or working experience may be added to the portfolio. Now, one of the things which students have a question about is, do I have a better chance of getting through if I have more years of working experience, or is it okay to come right after my bachelor's. Now, I'm someone who came right after my bachelor program, and I've also met a lot of people who came right after the bachelor's program. The only reason the working experience matters is because it gives you a clarity of which track do you really want to go in. Now, if you're not interested in landscape, it makes no sense for you to study 2 years of it. So the work experience essentially is to let you understand you really want to do landscape or maybe you want to do building technology. So it is like that, but the digital portfolio mostly asks from work from a previous educational program because that is the one component of your education which is done individually. So it shows your design knowledge and design sense. Now, portfolio of MSc tracks, while each master track has the specific evaluation criteria for the portfolio, which you can find it on the website. So for landscape architecture, they want to see how you have integrated the indoors and outdoors and what kind of landscape sense do you have, spatial sense. And for urbanism, it might be something else together. For building technology, it's more towards the technical things. So you have to go through the evaluation criteria for each track. And then you also have certain common requirements accepted by all tracks. And if these requirements are not met, the portfolio will not be evaluated. So the first stage of selection processes, they really check if the requirements are met. And only after that, they check the content of it. And they are mostly categorized as number and nature of projects. There are a strict number of projects that you can put into a portfolio. You cannot put 10 projects. You have a limited number of 5, of which 3 has to be academic projects, and then 2 can be your work experience. And what kind of projects that they are looking for is also specified. Then next comes on project documentation, on how do you explain your project through plans, through concept drawings, through modeling. So everything is properly specified in the website of the faculty. Required definition per project. You cannot just say, okay, this is a project for let's say a retreat center for artists. That's not going to work. When did you do it? Was it academic? Was it professional? Was it individual? Was it group? If it was group, so what was your role in it? And you have to write specifically what was your role in it, and you have to show the part that you worked on. You cannot show the entire group work. For example, one of the things that Indian students tend to do is they put NASA work. NASA work is really not considered because it's a group work. It has been taught as a group. It has been worked on as a group. So it's not going to work. And this is why the definition per project is specified so that the examiner knows what is your role in it and when, in what context this project was done. And the size of the portfolio. It is very important to adhere to the size of the portfolio. And it's something that even offices have started to ask now. For example, in TU Delft, you can only have a 30 number of A4 size pages. You cannot send an A2 size portfolio. You have to put an A4 size page because it's more it's much easier to see on a screen. And landscape format is much preferred layout for working. So you have all these criteria that has to be met, and it's very nicely specified and elaborated on the website. Now, motivation letter for MSc tracks. Apart from the motivation letter that you send to in university, you also have to put an abstract of the motivation letter in the portfolio, which is a very key component because it's the first page of your portfolio. And you have to specify why do you wish to study at the faculty and the specific course. So you cannot say that you are studying here because TU Delft is the best college or the faculty has a very high ranking. That's known. But what is it in you personally that you wish to study at the faculty and that specific course? For example, I'll talk about my experience. I have been to Europe a lot of times for family holidays. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the gardens and being there. And I was always inspired to be able to have something of that sort in India. And that was my motivation of really taking up the course of landscape architecture. And I mentioned it. And that is something that you have to do. What is it that personally inspires you to take that specific course? And why Faculty of Architecture in TU Delft? For me, it was the Faculty of Architecture in TU Delft, not because it had a higher ranking, but it was because that was one of the places where people were doing things which are also research based, but also in sync with the present trends compared to the other places that I researched on during my application process. Now, the second point, which is how studying there would help in your career goals, because for them, it's not about just giving a degree. You can get a degree from anywhere, but why is it that getting a degree from there is going to help you in your career goals? What are your long term career goals? And they wish for people to be aware of those. Mention the themes of work currently being done at the faculty that interest you. Why is this very important? Is because they know that your decision is based on after a period of you really understanding what the faculty is all about. Now, a lot of faculties, a lot of universities per se have this thing that okay, their faculty is diverse and inclusive, and they ask you questions in the interview like, how do you situate yourself in the diversity and inclusion? That's not what UDELF is looking for. It wants you to go through the works of the people. It wants you to understand what the faculty is being involved in, the challenges and the projects that they're working on, and what is it that aligns with your interests. Because at the end of the day, it's not a philosophical talk. It's the work that's going to matter. Now, and do not waste words writing information irrelevant to the application. This is something which is very essential. I have helped a lot of friends who were doing master's applications for the US. And a lot of times I have seen, sentences like, I got the first prize in a dance competition in college. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to your master's track. So please do not put such information. Now, so there are some tips for the portfolio. So one of the things that you should really do is put in a variety of design visualization methods. While for Indian offices, we tend to put a lot of fancy renders and we know Revit and we know Lumion and all of these. It's not going to work when you're applying for a master's, because when you're applying for an academic degree, they want to understand the design process and method that you follow. And for doing it, you have to do it through concept sketches. So what are the initial concept sketches that you have regarding this project? How did you develop these ideas? And what are the preliminary visuals of it and the end products achieved? So you actually have to explain to them the entire process, not only the end product of it, because they're not only interested in seeing that, but much more in the way you ended up to the last product that you're showing. The second is showcase a variety of visual styles through your projects to show the diverse technical knowledge. Now, we tend to show everything in the same visual style. Like we are going to have everything in software visual style of renders, but that doesn't work. You have to also be able to show that you know to sketch, you know to paint. And I don't mean paint any landscape or paint just about anything and give it. You cannot sketch a man and say, okay, I know to sketch. You have to do it through your project and show the different modes of representation in your projects, so that they know that you are equipped with a vast knowledge and you have experimented as a person, as an architect, to get your own signature representative style. And you cannot ignore details. A lot of times we don't put details of our projects in our portfolio, but that is just as important as everything else, because it shows the depth of your knowledge, even if it's the smallest detail that you can think of. And do not dump too much information and visuals on a single page. It is something that we as Indians are very guilty of. We have an overload of text and images on our portfolio, but that's not how it's supposed to be. Neatness and clarity of presentation is greatly valued, as I was talking about in terms of being able to communicate and also the exhibitions. One of the things that they keep telling students constantly is having a very neat and clear presentation. You should not be ashamed of having white spaces on your screen. It's okay to have white spaces. You don't have to fill every inch of your white space. And be original. Do not rip things off other people or off the internet, because when you do so much research on a project, you come across it, and they are not fools to not realize where you have ripped it off from. So don't do that, and plagiarism is strongly condemned. During our graduation thesis, we actually have to put all of our documents to a plagiarism check, because that is how serious they have seriously they feel about plagiarism. And you always have to, one of the things that no one tells you, but you should always do, is have page numbers to orient the viewer. If there are two examiners and they are looking at the portfolio at two separate instances, how are they viewer? Now, what has been my experience with the application process? So one of the things that I always tend to be amused with is that people come for a master's course, and then after 2 years, they have things like, yeah, but I don't even like this, or I'm not sure if I want to do this. And you spend so much time and you spend so much money, and you go to a different country altogether alone and struggle in different ways. You cannot say this, that, oh, I did not enjoy doing this, or this is not maybe something that I want to do, and I will go on and change it with another master's or a small short course. So always read the course information before you begin your application process. The website is very explanatory. It is in a very easy to understand language. So make sure you understand what are the courses that you have to take, what is the duration, what are you going to learn through it, and go through the faculty profiles. That is one of the most important things, because you'll understand what are the opportunities you might have later on, because this are the kind of projects that your faculty is equipped with. But it also helps you get prepared that, okay, in the future, for my graduation thesis, this is the theme that I can work on, which is actually something they do ask during your motivation letter for DUDelf, to specify what are the themes of graduation projects you want to work with. So the initial research on the course and the faculty profiles is very important to make an informed decision. The second is read through the general admission requirements by DUDelf. It is very, very important to first meet these general information requirements, because it first goes to the central admission office and only then to the faculty. A lot of times I have come across a case where someone was actually sent a letter saying you were accidentally admitted, because while you did qualify for the faculty round, but you did not meet the basic admission requirements because of your undergraduate transcripts. So make sure you meet the general admission requirements and take your TOEFL test or IELTS test according to the time slots that you have. So you have to first make a list of what are the things that you have to get done in Czech. One of the things that always becomes a problem is the letter of recommendations from Indian professors. So make that a priority and make sure to achieve these first. Then the structure, you have to structure the portfolio according to guidelines and the evaluation criteria. For every master's application for different universities, it is very essential that you structure your portfolio according to that university. You cannot have a generic portfolio that you send around everywhere, because every faculty has a different evaluation criteria. So if you want to increase your chances of getting it, really follow it, the evaluation criteria. So you have to really select and reject your projects. You cannot put any projects. You cannot put your first quarter projects if it doesn't align with the master's track that you're going to have. And finish the application time with enough float time. A lot of times we leave the application process to the very last date, but it's not the best thing to do. For example, the payment, once you reach the end of your application process, you also have to pay, which becomes a very difficult transaction because you're sitting in India and that's happening in Netherlands. So make sure you have enough float time to meet all these uncertainties that might happen, and check carefully before submitting the application, because you have, a lot of times it happens that you want to finish it at one go. But with DUDelf application process, you can actually start your application today and you can save the progress and submit it after a week. So you have this flexibility. So take advantage of this flexibility. Don't hurry into submitting the application. And the next thing is the personal experience I've had of studying there. Stop sharing. Okay. So Okay, so now I'll basically like to talk about the personal experiences that I've had studying there. So when I was in my undergraduate studies, one of the things that I used to always engage in and try to is to publish conference papers. And through these conference paper, I actually used to come across different professors who would come to deliberate on their work in these conference platforms. And that is how I actually came across TU Delft and also landscape architecture. So for me, landscape architecture has always been my first choice, and TU Delft was also the first choice, and I've worked towards it. But once I went there, you start to realize there are a lot of things that don't meet up to your expectations. You have to work very, very hard. Just because you're the best student in your college doesn't mean you're the best student there. And the Indian attitude of running after marks is not going to work there. You cannot go there with the aim of earning a 10 or a 9. You have to go there with the aim of learning everything that is possible, even if you get just a 6, because their marks don't matter. It's only about you being able to really learn. The second thing, which was very essential for my experience there, is, in India, in my college at least, I have had a very nice teacher student interaction. I've had a very nice teacher student interaction, and it was the same with, you are encouraged to interact with the teachers. You have to go there and you have to initiate conversations yourself, because these are people who are very, very busy. They have a lot of research work. They have a lot of PhD students under them. So they are not going to come to you and be like, if you're having a difficulty, let me know. If you're having a difficulty, you have to be forthcoming to go and tell them. Even if you want some opportunities, for example, you want to work on a research project that they are working on, you have to be forthcoming enough to ask them if there are any opportunities available to work with them, or if they can find any opportunities where you would proceed it. So I think that is very important, to have this communication dialogue happening with your professors and be very open. The second thing is, you're not going to learn everything from books. You're not going to learn everything from internet. You have to go to the library. This is something that I am also guilty of, because I didn't do that enough during my undergraduate college. But when you have a library which has so many resources, it's the best place to be in. During my first year of studies at TU Delft, I didn't use the library as much. But during my second year, I actually started going there, because I was like, oh, wow, this is a discovery that I've made. So make use of it from the very first day. The library is a huge resource, and you do not need to go around browsing on Google for everything. The fourth thing is, do not be too serious. It is, you have a lot of work as a student, but also learn to start understanding how different people think and what you can learn from the other people. Because as much as you're there to learn from your professors, you're also there to learn from the other people around you. So learn from your colleagues, learn from the other students, and always be open to having criticism, and always be open to having comments on it. You cannot sit with your own work on your desk and be like, I have done this and I'm going to show it to the tutor, and that's it. The best designs come from people around you. The best design ideas are actually because of that. You have to talk to your colleagues and be like, this is my design, and I would like to explain this to you, and tell me what you think about it. They might say something that you might not like. They might also have comments that is not relevant to you. But more often than not, they might give you questions to think about, which enriches your design. So once you go to a place like TU Delft, which gives you so many opportunities to interact and communicate, you have to take an advantage of it to better yourself and learn from any single source that you possibly can find. And I think apart from that, Delft as a place is, I have a lot of friends who are studying abroad in different places, and Delft is this one place which makes you feel at home, because it's a small little town. You have the native population, native Dutch population, and you have a huge international community. So there's never a point of the day where you feel like you're an outsider. It's very inclusive. People are accepting, and you'll always find someone or the other to talk to if you make the initiative for it. So yes, that is it from my side.
Thanks a lot for that, Barsha. I think that was a very, very detailed session. And whatever questions I had, I think you managed to already cover them. So I don't really have any Q&A session for today. So again, I would just like to thank you for, because that was a very, very, very detailed session. And it was amazing because you also managed to put in your experience in every single part of the way. So thanks a lot. And yeah, I think before I conclude the session, I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of Team Plant to thank you for taking out your for thanking you to taking out your time to actually come for this.
Thank you. I think it's a very good initiative, and I hope you have a lot of success in trying to change the industry and how people have started applying for masters. So yes.
I hope so too. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Barsha.
Thank you.